guys, and welcome to the Ownership Project's SOS, sharing our stories, where we get to listen to some beautiful stories for some very courageous people who want to share their experiences, their journey, and their views on mental health in order to try and help and support others that may be going through a similar journey. Before I introduce our next guest, I would love to introduce our sponsor for 2020. It's getsome.com.au, who provide some amazing supplements over here in Australia, created all the way in the USA by a company called Origin Labs. So that's getsome.com.au, and they support the hiring of military veterans over in the USA. So it's great to have them on board. During the SOS, we do also cover some sensitive topics and some very sensitive issues. So if you or anybody you know may be suffering currently or want to discuss any of this further or reach out for support, we do have numbers and emails and contact details available at the end of the show. So listen all the way along and you'll be able to find those there. Okay, and we are back on the Ownership Project's SOS, share our stories, and I'm gratefully have in my presence today another guest. It's great to be back. This is the first one we've done post-COVID era. We're very fortunate over here in Perth to be able to be as free as we are. Most stuff is open and everybody is active and gyms are open. We're able to do pretty much everything apart from get out of Perth. But yeah, it's, you know, we're very, very fortunate here, and it's great to be able to welcome people back, to be able to get guests and have these conversations again without any major restrictions. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my guest for today is Rhyanna Edbrooke, who is a strength empowerment coach, and she's come on to share a little bit of her story about her life, what she's been through as a professional athlete and as an athlete currently, and into her coaching role that she stepped into roughly about 18 months ago, and has been doing some great things. So Rhyanna, welcome.
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, doing really good, thank you. Yourself?
Very good. Thanks for having me on.
You are very welcome. It's it's been a while. I think it's been since I recorded the last one was just as COVID started, and I did an episode with one of my clients now over in New South Wales, which was the first one we did over Zoom, which was pretty cool. But I much more enjoy, as good as it is to have guests from overseas and in different states, I much more enjoy these face-to-face chats. So it's good to finally be able to welcome somebody into a studio as well.
Isn't it funny that normality is now something that's not normal?
I know, yeah. It's crazy. I mean, you know, from one moment we can do pretty much, well, we think we can do anything that we want, and then we realize then how little we can actually do when we're forced to stay indoors. And I mean, you know, like I said, like, you know, here in Perth we are so lucky and fortunate to be as free as we are. Like, I think, like, I don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure that we are the most well-managed place in the entire world for coronavirus.
Wow.
In terms of, like, I think we've got like 3 cases in the entire state. I mean, we don't have a massive amount of people over here, but it's about 5-6 million or something like that. But yeah, it's, you know, to think that, you know, the UK, where I'm from, over in America, I know you have a lot of conversations that we'll get into a little bit later with them, you know, how things are over there. You know, parts of Asia, everywhere is like shut down pretty much, and the cases are, you know, it's not just 3, it's like 3,000, or, you know. So yeah, without going on about the whole coronavirus thing too much, yeah, it's just nice to be able to sit and have face-to-face conversations with people and not have to stress so much about social distancing and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, very fortunate. So yes, again, welcome.
Yes. No, that it's completely fair what you're saying, and I know it's been horrible throughout the world, and there's been so many deaths and so much heartache and heartbreak from it, but there's also been a lot of positive light in that too, is that especially here, and like say for me talking about my own self personally in WA, I think also because it has been so well managed, it kind of reinforced priority. Like, what is priority in life? Like, what is most important? Is it work or is it your family? Is it going out and doing things, or is it spending time at home and doing things with your children? Like, for me, it reinforced the fact that I don't want to spend so much time away from my family and my friends. I want to spend time with them because being human is about interaction. Being human is about spending quality time with people, not just time. Yeah. I think for a lot of us, it's been a wake-up call to go, well, what are you doing? What is, like, how important is your life to you? And maybe you should put it as a priority and start living your life, not just existing in the realm of the rat race.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, I think it's been, like you said, it's been a massive wake-up call, especially, mental health-wise of where people are at. I mean, one thing that's been beautiful for me about this whole coronavirus, like, I know there's so many bad things going on in the world, but it's given me more time to do some reading. Or actually, I tell like not reading, but listening. I like to listen to my books rather than read them. But
Same.
But it's it's given me a time to learn a lot of stuff. And one of the things that I've learned is how people become attached to identities that they've created for themselves.
Not huge.
And we're seeing it. Even before coronavirus happened, they're seeing like people suffering from massive identity crises, but these are sort of, maybe, I don't want to use this phrasing wrong, but outside of the norm, so to speak. But now we're seeing it with people not being able to go to work, and how people put that as an identity rather than saying, I am a dad, or I am just a person, or I am just a human being. It's like, well, no, I am my job. I am a CEO of this company, or I am an employee of this business, or, I am the owner of this business. And, it's, that identity has been ripped away from a lot of people. And, I'm no massive follower of statistics, but I know that the cases of suicide, depression, mental health issues has just gone through the absolute roof. And, with Mental Health Week coming up soon as well, I think it's next week, it's a great time, now the world's not getting back to normal, so to speak, but it's a great time to really shine a light on how important it is to, if you're not looking after mental health at the moment with everything that's going on, how important it is. And it's, podcasts like these and other ones around Perth and around the world, the things that they're doing to help shine a light and not necessarily solve problems, but just let people out there know it's okay to be struggling at the moment. It's okay to be struggling at any time, let alone now. But it's beautiful, like people like yourself want to come and share your story and explain a little bit about where you've come from and how you've been able to deal with things for yourself. And I know that's probably the mainstay of where your business has come from, right? Yeah. That you started up. And these are the things that people need right now. And it's so good, and I feel grateful to be able to welcome you here today to listen to your story and see where you've come from. I believe I'm going to learn a lot.
We always learn from each other. Most definitely. I always believe that as a coach, is that whoever you talk to can teach you something. And one thing that I've always lived by is that it's okay to not be okay. But don't think that you're isolated in that space. There's always someone there who will listen. And I mean, God, I put my hand up to anybody. I open my heart to anybody. I open my house to anybody to say, look, if you need somebody, I'm there. Because like you said, mental health is such a huge issue, and one that's kind of pushed under the rug a lot of the time. And like you said, now they're starting to become a lot more aware of it, and that recognizing that it needs to be something on the forefront, and something we really focus on, because it has so much implication on people's lives. I was one of those who was in the label space. I mean, I was the athlete, and I'm like, that's all I was. And it's horrible to think that I forgot who Rhyanna was in that space, because I was so driven by that label, by that identity that that label created me. But it was an illusion. There is no, it meant that I didn't know who I was. And it definitely leads to, like I said, mental issues, anxiety, depression, all of those even personality disorders, because we are so driven by the labels.
And I know it's like, I mean, it says from our own relationship, like I've known you for maybe 5-6 years now, maybe longer.
Maybe a bit longer, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Time's irrelevant, really. It doesn't matter. But
It doesn't bother me.
I mean, like, we don't know what people are going through. Like, we've only reconnected recently, and, you know, this is the first time I've heard about, you know, what Rhyanna's actually gone through in terms of her mental health journey and her struggles through life and things like that, and obviously successes as well. But, you know, it shows that even for people that you've known for a long time, it's people go through stuff, and maybe they're not at that stage where they're going to openly talk about things. But it's important to know that there is a space out there to be able to open up and to be able to feel comfortable talking about these things, because it's not easy.
No, not at all. Like, it's so hard.
Like, I used to hide behind, you know, what I went through, and you know, I wore that on my sleeve for so many years, and it was an identity that I created for myself. I didn't want to talk to anybody about it because I thought, who the hell's gonna want to hear me whinge on about my life, or who's gonna, you know, be able to relate to what I've gone through? But it's not about that. It's not about finding someone to relate, or, you know, you whinging, so to speak. It's just human connections. It's being able to be free and talk about things without stress or without stigma or anything like that, or anything being attached to it. It's just like, you know, conversation is so important.
Yeah, the ability to be human,
Yeah.
to be unapologetically you, no matter what you talk about, and not feel like you're judged in that space. Yeah, and that's something's definitely changing. It's definitely becoming a lot more apparent that people are stepping into that space. But it has been something that, like you said, people feel like, I can't be open about that because I'm whinging about my life because, like, everyone else has a story. Yeah, they do. But what it comes back to is, at the end of the day, is that success in anything comes back to support. And success could be just personal success, as in that I like me again. I look in the mirror and go, I fucking like that person. That person's amazing. Rather than going, oh my God, who is that? And it's all comes back to the human connection, come back to the energy, comes back to the support that we get from others. And it's knowing that whatever you have to say, people want to hear. They want to hear you. They want to help you if they can. They want to just help, I guess, each other be happy, because it's about happiness.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, I'm of the big believer that people as a whole, the human race, generally want to help and do good things.
They do.
I don't believe that there is inherently a bad person out there. There's not a bad human being. People can make bad choices and, you know, become the victim of their own struggle through whatever that they're going through. But that doesn't mean that they're inherently, like, down to the core, a bad person.
Definitely
It just
not.
means that they, you know, maybe they've made some wrong choices in life, and they've stepped down the wrong path, and yeah, it may have led them down to a certain path of bad things, but that doesn't mean that they can't change. Doesn't mean that they can't adapt or, you know, heal from whatever they've been through. And that doesn't apply to just bad people. That applies to anybody, you know. Whatever you're going through, that's not who you are.
It's a perspective thing. It's like, say, for example, in America, they had a lot of issues with, like, school massacres, and everyone's like, oh, the kid who did it was, like, horrible, like, he doesn't deserve to exist. And I'm like, well, hang on, let's put it into perspective. So a child brings an AK-47 into a school, first and foremost, and then unleashes on classmates, and then ultimately himself. And people then judge that child and ridicule that child for the things that he or she may have done. I'm like, put yourself in that child's shoes. What did it take for him or her to get to that point where they thought that was the only option they had? And it's like you said, it's just shifting the perspective, because they're not a bad person. It's like, what was the conditioning? What was the trauma? What was the environment that created the feeling state of, this is my only option? And it's like, if someone just reached out to that person and said it's okay to talk, would that change things? like if they said like it's okay to not be okay, like and supported that person through it, would it change the scenarios that happen? And I believe that it would, because it's just recognizing that it doesn't matter what you've done, who you are, where you're from, we are all human and we are all here to help each other ultimately.
Yeah, I mean, you know, with whatever anyone goes through, it's easy to feel like you've been pushed into a corner and that there's nowhere out. And, you know, with especially, like, I don't know too much about, like, what went on with all the school shootings and stuff like that.
No, neither do I.
Yeah.
It's more just putting in perspective of why would they do it.
You're right. It's like, it doesn't make the child necessarily inherently a bad person. It's, you know, predominantly, it's a build-up of negative experiences, or a build-up of trauma, or a build-up of potentially bullying.
That's it.
That pushes them into a certain space, and they think there's no way out of that space. So they, rather than create the small steps out, they create a big explosion out, which unfortunately sometimes ends in things like that. And, you know, it's why it's so important to be able to create safe spaces for people, and to, you know, again, like there's beautiful things that happen in our city, like groups, like men's groups, women's groups, family groups, relationship groups for people suffering with traumatic illnesses or PTSD, things like that. But they're not widely available is probably the wrong word, but they're not widely like marketed or advertised, or they're not the easiest things to find, because it's still sort of brushed under the covers. Like, if you go to a group, then, oh, that means you've got a problem. And admitting that you've got a problem is a negative thing in terms of society, even in this day and age.
Yeah, I think that it shows a lack of strength, when it's, in my mind, it's the exact opposite. It shows strength.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's not easy to admit that you want to change.
No.
Or it's not easy to admit that you're suffering and you've been going through it tough for a while. But at the end of the day, the hardest things that we do in life are usually the ones that come off with the best payout, that feel the best, have the best journeys.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, once you be able to reach out and you find yourself in that space where you can finally talk to somebody, or feel open to talk about things and not have to worry about what's going on in your head, because now it's out.
Yeah.
This is just personal experience. It's just a beautiful thing to find people that, you know, want to sit and listen and help and offer advice.
Yeah. And the toughest, I would say, like, that it's the hardest thing you'll ever do in life, in my own view, is the personal development and healing that space. But it is the most rewarding thing you'll ever do, because, like you said, it's freedom. You actually, you're free from the ego, from the conditioning, from everything, and you actually go, hi world, this is me.
Yeah.
And that is such an elating feeling. I remember when I finally stepped into that space, and I was like, wow, I really was carrying the weight of the world, because I feel so light and energized and free. And I was like, if I could even just do a little bit of this for somebody in whatever manner it is, I guess I've just given them a new lease on life to a degree, because it's you can't even put it into words how amazing the feeling is. If you just give them a little bit of it, God, you've definitely been a good person, and you've done what you should as the human.
Yeah, you're right. It's like, coaching as itself, it's so rewarding. Like, you know, it's being able to sit there and have a space that, you know, that you've made happen from your own passion, where people actually feel comfortable to come and open up and share and talk and heal.
Yeah.
And move forward with their own lives and smile at things that they've never smiled at before, and seeing different perceptions to ways that they've been potentially buried in for a long period of time. It's beautiful. It
is.
And then not even just in coaching, just in general as a human being, like you said, to be able to do the same thing, to have an open conversation with somebody and not not have it as if they feel like they're a victim because they're talking, but to be able to even just have the tools to be able to know how to approach someone like that. I think that's an important thing as well. Huge. And it's unfortunately something that we don't learn early enough in life. We only tend to find it out like once we've been through a massive trauma and how somebody else has helped us through it, and then you feel open enough to be able to help other people through it because of what you've been through.
That's it.
But tell us a little bit more about your story and where you've come from to be able to do what you're doing today.
Yeah, I mean, I think as with almost all all people going through school, bullying is something you witness or you're on the end of the receiving end of, and I was definitely bullied through primary school into high school, and to the point where I separated myself from people. I had a very small group of friends that I would associate with purely because it just wasn't worth it. And so I, even from a really young age, started to disconnect and disassociate to who Rhyanna was, because she was that strange little girl who always had a runny nose that people would bully. And I was like, so straight away, you start to condition yourself to believe that you are not enough. And so I guess, I mean, I'll talk about the story, but the lesson I learned is that I am enough. But so many people don't believe they are. They feel that they are not enough exactly as they are. And that's where my story gets started. And so because of the disconnection and disassociation with my feminine self as Rhyanna, I moved into identity of labels. And so I went, well, what can I do? I was always really good at sport. My mum and dad were really good at sport, and I got into a space of recognizing that I could control the outcome of sport. I could control what I was doing in that space. I could control me. And mine led into the psychological disorder of Anorexia Athletica. Now, not many people know what that disorder is or haven't necessarily heard of it. Another name that's commonly called is hypergymnasia. And it basically is where it's a obsession, like a compulsion to train excessively. And it leads to a nervosa, so that it leads to the anorexia part. Now, it's not necessarily anorexia nervosa, because that's actually more to do with body image. Mine's the athletica part, which is more to do with performance. And so what it is, though, is that by being in that space, I could control both performance in regards to exercise and performance in regards to food, so nutrition. And we start to, as the person in that space, believe that we have control over our lives by controlling those two factors. When really it's a complete illusion. And it leads to heartache. Because I mean, I stepped into that space and I was a phenomenal athlete. I mean, I represented Australia 3 times. It's been 5 now. But every accolade I achieved was empty because it was based on what others saw, not how I felt about what I did. And luckily for me, my mum was really clued on, being a nurse and then training to be a doctor, but then got pregnant and never actually got there. She picked up on it. She actually picked up on the fact that there was something wrong with the way I was approaching things. Because I mean, I would go to training, and I'd be training for, this is when I was a Taekwondo athlete for Australia, so international Taekwondo, and within a weight class too. I would go to training and I would train for 3 hours, and I'd train hard. I'd get home and I'd go for a 10K run because I hadn't done enough. I would be, say for some reason I got a flu, I'd be sick as a dog. Do you think I'd stop? No way. Do you think I could? It was impossible, because as soon as I stopped, I'm like, I would control food because, well, you're not training, you can't. So I was always in a space of being driven by this unexplainable urge to do more. And it's because, like I said, it's because it's what gave me the illusion of control over my life and who I was. And luckily, like I said, Mum picked up on it, and it didn't ever lead to the nervosa. So I didn't actually get to a point. I definitely got to a point where I was changing the food choices I was making. I was changing the amount of food I was eating, but I didn't get to a point where I was excessively calorie cutting and not eating. And so I definitely, for my frame, I dropped to 58 kilo at 5'8", which was incredibly gaunt for my actual size. And that's when Mum was kind of like, hang on, what's going on here? And yeah, it was the support and the recognition that helped me move past that. And I guess that the biggest healing phase for me was recognizing that I was enough and I didn't have to have any accolades. I didn't have to be the athlete. I didn't have to be the personal trainer. I didn't have to be the coach. I didn't have to be any of that. All I needed to be was me. And learning that was fucking tough. I was like, because I would look in the mirror and I didn't like what I saw. I didn't like the person who looked back at me. I didn't really know who that person was because from such a young age, I disconnected from that person. And the journey back to Rhyanna was, like you say, it's one of the toughest things you ever do. Like in your story, it's so tough in that space, but it's the support and the love of others that gets you through, because you know that like they're there for you no matter what. They're not judging you. They don't ever judge what you've said ever. They're just there for you. And it's with my help from the mentorship in FMA. So Mark Buckley and Mark Luxon, they just loved me for me. And they were just there to go, you know what? Like they would help show me the puzzle pieces that I was missing, understand something that maybe I couldn't in a different perspective, and then let me make the decision to what it was I needed to do for myself. And part of my healing was actually writing my story, like writing it and physically writing it and then reading it to others and getting to a point where it was just a story. There was no emotion. I didn't cry. I didn't bring up anything. I was just like, it's just a story.
That's beautiful.
And that's the process that was probably the catalyst for me and I had to write it. God, it was probably 4 or 5 times over and over, just for me to be completely honest with it too, because I was holding things back still. I didn't want to admit to those things, but when I did, and then the process of healing through that space, so you'd read it and a section would catch you and you'd end up in tears, and so then you'd journal that, and you journal what is that, and dig deeper into it, and then uncover what the actual, I guess, what was causing it, and maybe the conditioning that put you in that space, and then healing from that, and then doing it again, reading it to someone, and then if you had another space that caught you up, you would do the same thing. And it was just a process of elimination necessary, like, I guess, and getting to a point where there's nothing more. I read it now and go, it's a story. It's just a story, and everybody has a story, and the level and the severity of the story doesn't come into it, because everyone has a story, and everyone's lived something that's traumatic, and everyone's dealing with their own shit. And it's like you said, when you heal from yours, you recognize that the school of hard knocks you went through are the people whose lives you will impact most, because they can relate to you. And we're not always going to relate to everyone. That's just why we need so many people to do this, because we need others to step into that light and go, this is my story and this is what I healed from. Because say in regards to suicide, like I had fleeting thoughts or suicidal thoughts, but I didn't ever step into that space. So if someone came to me who wanted to talk about suicidal tendencies, I would send them to you. Because it's not, I haven't had that first-hand experience with it. But if it came back to bullying or athletic anorexia, like bring it on, because that's my journey. That's what I went through. And yet again, even if you're suffering those same things, your journey is your story is completely different, and your journey will be completely different because of that. And as the coaches, it's helping them understand what that is to them. And then allowing them the space to develop the processes and skills that they need to move through that. And that's all that mine was, is just giving me the processes, which was basically writing the story. It was journaling. It was breath work. It was that kind of stuff, and teaching me the process I need to do to heal. But what it was truly is just understanding that I was enough. Just as I was, and it's been a tough journey, and it took me, years. I mean, I've been an athlete for 22 years, and only in the last sort of couple of years have I actually moved away from the clutches of control from being the athlete. And now I play sport because I enjoy it. I don't care about how well I do. And of course, still that athlete comes up and I'm a pain in the ass and I want to get it right and I don't, and I get angry, but that's just human. But primarily, it doesn't control me anymore. And
That's good.
it's such a elating feeling to go, I'm not controlled by anything. I don't care about the outward praise to what I may have achieved, because I love me, and that's all that matters.
Yeah. It's beautiful, like a beautiful share. I really appreciate you opening up about that. And it's, what I loved about the process that you went through with the writing is the problem that happens when we go through anything in life, whether it's positive or negative, we attach emotion to it. And that's just human nature, because when anything excites us, we feel excited. If something traumatic happens, we might feel sad or we might feel angry about it. But the problem is, if it's so traumatic or so exciting, that feeling sticks. And whatever may have happened around that time, whether it's certain smells, certain actions, certain words, just the memory of being in that sort of a situation, that sticks and imprints in your mind. And you hold that emotion into it through whatever you do.
Yep.
So, but unless you know that, that's what you identify with. So it's like, let's say you've been in a traumatic accident, like a car accident or something like that. You might avoid driving, or you might, feel fear in certain places or situations. Maybe the scene of the accident, you avoid it because there's an emotional attachment that you have to that one thing, right? So the process that you went through is becoming familiar with what you went through, becoming aware of what you actually went through, understanding that emotions do attach.
Yep.
And no doubt, if you play this any scenario that's traumatic over in your head, these emotions will come back up, and you'll feel what you went through at that certain time, and you'll feel what you go through every time you're reminded of this traumatic event. But the problem is, unless we're aware of that, and we really understand that that's apparent, we can't change.
That's it.
And the beauty of the process that you went through of writing it down, it's not in your head anymore. Because if it's in your head, it stays there.
Yep.
And it just floats around, and like a tornado, just comes back and destroys you at any given time.
Yeah.
Whereas if you write it down, you start to see it for what it really is. You can read it back to you as if it's not yours anymore. And like you said, it just became a story as opposed to your story.
Yeah.
And once you start to understand that, yes, sometimes we go through trauma, and yeah, some things are sad, some things do make you angry, but it doesn't define you.
Not at all.
It's not who you are. Like I said, I've been doing a lot of reading recently, and I'm rereading one of the books I listened to by a guy called Eckhart Tolle, which is called A New World. It's all about spiritual enlightenment. It's a little bit out there.
Yeah.
Great read. But he puts it out there, and he says a lot about, we identify with everything that we can see, touch, smell. But we identify with feeling in the wrong way. We identify with the emotions that are created by the things we experience, but we don't identify with actual feeling itself.
Wow, that's crazy.
So, for example, we might identify ourselves as a human, but that's because we see a physical shape. Whereas he goes through this meditation, and he says, just close your eyes, take a few deep breaths, and open your hands, and start to feel what's going on in your hands. You might feel a tingling sensation. You might feel the blood rushing. You might feel a pulse. You might feel anything. That's you. Mm. You are that feeling, because that is energy. That is what's going on from second or microsecond, however you want to define time. That's what's going on. That is who you are. You are that feeling that you can feel right there. But we never identify with that feeling because it doesn't give us directly anything. Whereas if we feel angry, it gives us a sense of being, or a sense of what we can do, like we can become an action from it. There's something away from it. So we like to identify with these emotions. But if we identify that, we are just literally blood flowing through
Energy.
our bodies, energy,
Yeah.
movement, it brings you down to a level where, wow, if that's what I am, then what makes me so bothered about anger and all this frustration? Because that's changeable. Like the blood flowing around you, we can't change that. The energy that's inside of you, it changes, but we don't have control over it because that's who we are.
Yeah.
We're not our body. We're not our past experiences or our future plans. We're just this. And that's like going levels and levels and levels and levels deeper.
Excellent, though.
But it's, it's so good to be able to come to terms with that. Like, there might be people out there listening to me thinking I'm crazy, or what I'm talking about just is it's like airy fairy witchcraft nonsense kind of stuff.
Woo woo.
Yeah, a bit of woo woo.
I love it. Bring on the woo woo.
Yeah. I get it. It's out there. It's not anything that we're taught about.
It's not tangible all of the time.
But what is tangible? In theory.
Yeah. I agree.
We say things might be tangible, but are they really? Or is it just a conceived? Like, we're both coaches, right? One of the first things I learned about coaching, about what you can do for people is, okay, you need to set SMART goals for people. And it's like, okay, well, it seems legitimate, right? You look after the time, you look after the topic, you look after all these different things to be able to want to achieve this outcome. And don't get me wrong, setting goals is still a good thing to do. But we get so fucking attached to the outcome that we forget about the actual beauty is not the goal itself, because it doesn't matter what goal you set. You will never achieve it. And I mean never. That doesn't mean that you won't have success. You will just never achieve that goal, because this goal will be a preconceived idea. You might come 80% close. You might come 10% close. You might come 99% close. But there'll always be a difference with what's actually come apart to what you had in your head.
Yep.
It's not going to be exactly the same. So getting attached to these things is what causes a lot of stress. In the fitness world, it's what causes people to lose weight and then put it back on, is because, I lost all this weight and it wasn't as good as I thought it was. And it's because, probably the weight is just a symptom, or it's just part of the journey that you need to go through. The same with trauma, for example. The same with, what I've been through with, suicide. Trying to commit suicide and take my own life. It's like, I thought, once I've got my head around this, then I'm healed. And it's like, well, no, this is just part of it. It's like, we learn and we grow every moment of every day. And this is the thing, is it's not about the result of overcoming this or overcoming that. It's just that I enjoy learning. I enjoy growing. I enjoy new challenges, because it's not even about the challenge. It's just about the doing part of having something to work towards and enjoying the work towards part, as opposed to looking for the result. I don't know, it's a long-winded way to get to the point.
No, I love it.
But this is a thing. It's this is the problem with identity. When we identify with a goal that's in the future, we struggle to come to terms with it when we get there. Like, for example, this must happen so much in the athletic world. You're meant to be this when you have this athletic tag stuck to your name, there's an expectation that you perceive comes with it.
Yep.
Based on other people. Which in actual reality, that tag is absolutely 100% unattainable. Because people are always going to have their own opinions about things, positive and negative. So you're never going to be able to reach that goal in everybody's opinion, you're probably never even going to be able to reach it for yourself. But it's not about it. It's like you said, you've become, since you've come through this journey, you've fallen in love with sport as opposed to being an athlete.
Yeah.
And this is the thing that happens in with people's lives, is you become identified with a certain being. Like for myself, I know one of my big tags, this was even before I tried to commit suicide, was I was a kid without a dad. And I walked around that, like, pasted on as a t-shirt and wore it proudly to my own demise. But that's who I was. I was a kid without a dad. And along with that came a whole bag of negative beliefs, worry, stress, sadness, abandonment, you name it. But I carried that with me everywhere I went, because that's who I'd believed that I was. And did I enjoy my life? Yeah, I had some great experiences. But whenever something painful arose, that came to the forefront like there was no tomorrow. And every single emotion that I had buried in that little bag of identity, I guess you'd call it, again came around through relationship breakups, through arguments with people. And once you have an argument with somebody, and then you create an identity from that, maybe you get this idea of like, oh, this is the second time I've been cheated on, I'm not good enough for people. It's like, what? Bang, throw that in the bag too, and then you got something else there. But as soon as, like you said for yourself, you break away from this identity that you need to be something rather than just actually being.
That's it.
This is where the healing process starts. And again, I talk a lot. And it's taken me a long time to come around to the point. But, the writing process allows you to do that. It allows you to start to detach from that identity that you created for yourself. And it's great because, I unfortunately, I've only started really networking recently and started talking to other coaches in this area. And it's so nice to see that some of the things that I use, other people use, like yourself as well. And it's like, it just reinforces how fucking important just basic things like writing is.
Huge.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that I guess I took on board from my journey was that it, like you said, it's not about the end goal. It's about the process. And therefore I developed a little meme, and it's like, don't go through it, grow through it. Because it's all about the progression. That's what life is. It's about growing and learning and adapting and conquering, like you said, and doing that every day. It's like, don't go through it, grow through it, learn from it, like take it on and go, hey, this is really cool. This is life. This is what it's supposed to be a human. I guess with what you were saying too, about being ruled, is that, like when you said that with people, what part of the issue is that they don't know. They don't know what, like, they don't understand to a level that makes sense to them. And part of our job as a coach is helping them understand that. And so what we were taught in my mentorship was, it's not your fault what might have happened to you, but it is your responsibility once you know to change that. And it's therefore what the biggest thing, like you said, the biggest part of that is knowing, being, have someone help you learn or understand what that is to you. And that's the part where we think that we can do it by ourselves. We fucking can't. Like, it doesn't matter who you are, you can't do this by yourself. This journey is so tough that you need the support. But it doesn't actually, you don't actually ever grow until you reach out for the support. Like I said, when you're ready to do it, right? So you have to be like, I went into a mentorship, and it's funny, and I was spending stupid amounts of money, and the money is irrelevant, really is. But it took me 6 months before I actually did anything, because coming into it, it was a nice idea to change, but did I really want it? Obviously, I didn't at that point. And I kept kind of going around in circles and getting frustrated with myself. And I was like, well, commit to self. Commit to the process. Commit to the people and the team that want to support me. Actually give in to them. Drop the facade. Lean into the discomfort and shit will change. Yeah. And it did, but it's when we're ready. So like, but then when I say you've got to be coachable. Like you've actually got to want it, and not just a nice pipe dream. You've actually got to want to do the horrible, dirty work to get to that point.
Yeah, you're right. Like, you know, it can be quite daunting when you first realize that something's not quite right, and you may have this impulsion to want to change, but until you start to let go that this identity is not who you are, then it is very difficult to make that change, because it's like the ego is a very, very, very powerful thing. And again, there's a lot of people out there that might go, oh, ego, it's a whole lot of bullshit, woo-woo, all that sort of stuff. But you know what? You can call it what you want. Call it your inner voice. Call it that person inside your head. Whatever you want.
Yeah.
That exists. And what happens is with ego is it's not about people being a dick. It's not about people being assholes and going, oh, that guy's full of his own ego. Or that girl's so egotistical. Ego exists in a way that it basically just looks to try and prove the identity that you've created for yourself.
Yeah, it's a version of yourself.
Yeah,
is ego.
So if you believe you are, like for myself, I use myself as an example, right? If I believe I am the kid with no dad, and I've got all this bag of stuff that I carry around with me, the ego is going to look for proof of that. And
confirmation bias.
Yeah, and anything else that comes around, anything positive that comes around that is, doesn't prove that point, the ego is just going to pass it by and just let it go on. No, I don't want this information. Move on, until it finds this idea. So, for example, what I found in my relationships was, I'd get to, the honeymoon stage. You'd be, this is great, so much fun. And then once that would start to die down a little bit, the ego would start to jump in and go, well, hold on, buddy. You've got no dad. You're worthless. Why would anybody want to be around you? Your dad wouldn't want to be around you. So why would anybody want to be around you? So, okay, why does this person not want to be around you? And they could be the most beautiful person in the world. And then they make this one little bad thing. And the ego just goes, ha ha!
Told you.
There it is, buddy. You're not worth it.
Yeah.
And look, that's not what the ego does every single time. But, whatever somebody is going through, the ego just looks to prove that this is the case. And it's until you disattach from that idea, until you break this idea where it's like, there is another way, then you can start your journey.
That's it. With the whole ego thing, I guess the way that I countered mine was, to put it into perspective, I was like, first and foremost, who am I facing? It's me, right? Mm. And I'm a formidable athlete. And I'm like, I'm coming up against me. So my journey is going to be tough, first and foremost, because I know what I do. I know my strengths. I know my weaknesses. I know it all. And I'm facing that person. I'm like, that challenge is tough. But what got me through it was recognizing that with the ego, the version of yourself, the part of you that has protected you to a point to get through certain traumas of your life, that still has a voice that is based on that past trauma, that is no longer relevant, is still controlling you. And you've got to go, well, hang on. What I say to my clients, friends, whoever, is that think of ego as another person, that you're actually, it's a third person and you're having a conversation with that person. So make what your ego said vocal. Say it out loud, and then see how you feel when you actually hear what it's telling you. Because even if it's inside of you, you kind of almost, you push it aside and go, it's nothing. It's like, no, if someone said what your ego is saying to you out loud, what would you say? Or how would you feel? How would you respond to that? Or would you react to that? And have that conversation with yourself and go, you know what, ego? Yeah, cool, that used to be true. but it is no longer true, and I'm not going to listen to that space. And it's just, like I said, it's awareness. It's going, well, it's telling me a story, and it's telling me it for a reason, but is that reason now valid? No, it's not. And is what it's telling me that, oh, you're worthless or useless, you're not good, you're not enough as you are, true? And if it's not, tell it to piss off, literally.
Yeah.
To do the work, like I said, and with the writing, it's like it's purging the system. It's getting it out onto paper so it no longer swirls around your brain and causes congestion and confusion. It's out. And once it's out, it disappears. So one of the techniques I use as well, and hopefully like you've heard of it, is the spew book technique, where you just write. And you just write it, and you write it, and it's my writing, Jesus, it's not legible. They're not even words. It's just scribbled, literally. And because my brain's working faster than my hand can actually move, and you get writer's cramp at the end of it. It's hilarious. But and it's purely just a purge of the system. Like, women cry a lot too, and it's a purge of the system, right? But the writing allows you to get it out and then get to a point where you're like, well, what is it that I was even concerned about, or what was worrying me, and why was it? Because when you get out of the system, you get that clarity, and you go, well, it's actually nothing, or it's this. And it allows you, like I said, the space in your head for clarity and reason, and to be able to listen to your heart, to hear it over your head, because finally you've gotten rid of that noise. And then, of course, with spew book, one of the main things I have to talk about that is that you never ever read it. You never ever leave it where someone can read it, because mine, seriously, there's a hell of a lot of swear words, and I'm this person this and this person that, and I'm like, and it's not personal. It's just that it's how I felt at that particular time, and so you've always got to. So what I do, because it's really cathartic, and I'm a firebug, is I burn the pages and watch them burn away, and it's so cathartic, and it just makes me feel good, clearing that mind and listening to the heart again, and actually being connected with the essence that is me. And that technique is phenomenal. I recommend it to everybody. It's like brilliant. But like I said, don't leave it anywhere. Don't ever read it again, because you're like, whoo.
Well, I have a few different opinions on that, but I use a very, very similar technique, and that specific thing got me over one of my biggest challenges. But you're right in terms of, like, at the end of the day, that's a part of your mind that's on paper. And, if it's something that you're not comfortable with sharing, this needs to be very, very, very private. Like, a diary is sacred.
Yeah.
Like, it is a part of what's going on inside your body, just put into pen and ink, and it should be sacred. And you should, unless you're comfortable with talking about it, then, keep it safe, because it's a part of you and your journey of what to go through. Maybe you'll share it sometime in the future. Maybe you won't, but it is yours. But the beautiful thing I love about that is, I got one instance where I think I wrote for about 7 hours.
Wow. How was your hand after that?
Yeah, well, it wasn't 7 hours straight, but it was like 2 hours here, then I'd go away and I'd think about it, and I'd go, no, I want to write more, and I'd just write more. And I think it was about 7 hours. And I went, in the course of a day, from being angry at my missus because of some stupid fucking thing that was, I can't remember, for some reason I think it was something about a kettle. I don't know what it was, but we were having an argument about something. Going through that same technique, we call it personal assessment.
Yeah.
And going through that technique and coming out of the end, realizing that all the properties that I needed that I thought I needed from my dad that I was missing, I'd been given to by my granddad. And when he passed away, realizing that they're still within me, and that just because the presence of someone isn't there doesn't mean that they've got nothing left to teach you, or you've got nothing left to do, because the lessons that they've given you are within.
Yeah.
From a fucking kettle.
It's crazy what you come up with.
But this is the thing. This is why writing is such a beautiful thing. Like, the amount of dots that had to connect in there were unfathomable.
Yeah.
Like, but I'm more than happy to share, but it will take me 7 hours to talk about it. And I don't want to let people whinge at me talk on about what I've been through. But it's beautiful. Like, it's about courage to challenge yourself and not be worried about what comes out, because at the end of the day, you're the only person that's going to see it. That's the beauty of it. There's no fear behind it, because there's no judgment, because their aim is to try and figure out what's going on, to try and break it all down and to make some sense of it.
Yeah.
And whatever comes out on paper, it doesn't matter if it doesn't make any sense. If it makes no sense, you can just go, well, why the hell have I been thinking that all this time?
Where'd that come from?
Yeah, and it's just like, oh, that doesn't make sense. Oh, I don't need to think about that anymore.
I've had many moments like that.
Yeah.
That does not make sense at all, but it is.
But when it's in your head and it's up here, it goes round and round, and it seems as legitimate as the cup you're holding when you're drinking a cup of tea.
That's it.
You know? It's mad. It really is mad. But, you know, one thing when you were sharing your story about the Anorexia Athletica, and maybe I used the wrong words here, but the one thing I liked, or not just the one thing, but the thing that I liked about the story is although it's got a name, it's not, you know, I think when it comes to mental illnesses as well, people find a lot of comfort in identifying that they have something. Like, for example, anorexia, like knowing that you have anorexia, if you do, is a comfort in itself, because it's like, now I understand it, now I can move forward. But I think with what you're going through, or what you went through, and, you know, it not really being one of the big mental health issues, is that a lot of people fit into this category where they have no identification with any form of mental illness, but feel shit.
Yeah.
And it's important to know that, you know, you don't have to have some sort of an identified problem to be able to start a journey, or to realize that you want to talk to somebody, or realize you want to hire a coach, or you want to go and speak to a psychologist, or you want to go and talk to a friend about things. You don't have to be going, okay, now I've got this, now I can talk about it. You don't have to wait to that stage.
Yeah.
You know, if you feel that something's not quite right, get talking.
That's it. I mean, in the sporting realm, anorexia athletica isn't recognised as a mental disorder at all. And if it was, the actual cases in regards to percentage, and I'm not sure what the percentage is, would rise quite drastically. I mean, I also suffer from anxiety and depression genetically. So my mum and my dad had it, and I was medicated for quite some time. And I wish that I know what I know now, because there's no way I would have necessarily stepped into that medicated space. Now, I'm not saying that I'm against medication or prescription, because there's a space for it. It's really necessary, but for how long? And with mine, it was sort of like, oh, you'll probably take these forever, blah blah. I'm like, well, no, I don't want to take that forever. I want to get to a point where I've got enough control to step into the space of healing to do what I need to do for myself. And I got off of that, and I was like, well, what I've sort of developed over the last couple of years of coaching is that, well, okay, they say that with anxiety and depression that there is sometimes, not always, an imbalance in chemicals or neurotransmitters in your brain, which can cause the anxiety or depression. What I kind of feel is that, well, yet again, the labels, is it really? What I see is that it's basically, it's levels of emotions, and it's the extreme levels of emotions. And it's like, well, what depicts the levels? Some people will have a higher, be more prone to anxiety. Some people are more prone to depression, but does that mean they have a problem? It's learning how to deal with their levels of emotions and being able to make sense of them and work with them to a level where they feel comfortable. So is there actually anything really wrong with that person in that space? And there's a lot of other conditions that I feel the same about. Is that, well, what says that they really do have that? They just have extremes in emotions. And it's just learning for them what it looks like to control their emotions. That is it. There's a lot of things, like I said, with the whole labels thing, is that, why do we need the label? Again,
ego. Comes down to ego. This want to be something.
That's it.
This want to have an identity. Because if you know, well, you think you know, you have this preconceived idea that this is the truth, then it's just easier to come to terms with, because then you can look for other things that go alongside that. So, for example, if you have depression, you may feel comfortable when you identify with depression to be in a depressive environment, because it just feels like you exist better in there. So you make possibly not the best choices for maybe the people you hang around, maybe the places you choose to go, the different environments that you put yourself in, what you allow into your life. It's, you see, I had a conversation on the phone the other day, and there was a lady, she was asking me, why does she pick the same guys all the time? And it's the case of, this is common. It's, we get out of a relationship because we don't like it.
Yeah.
And then we fall into a relationship with the person that does exactly the same thing as the last person. And this is created not because of bad people. This is created because of the ego. You have an idea that's like, you are this certain person or you are this certain way, and then you will look for everything to prove that. So you will go into this relationship, if you identify as, I'm someone that gets cheated on, you will go into this relationship and potentially push it to that point where somebody cheats on you again. And, it may say there's a lot of stuff that comes in between there. Obviously, it's not just as simple as that. But this is the thing with it, is you have to break this pattern. You have to understand why.
That's it.
You have to understand, most importantly, you. That is the most important part. If you don't understand you, then you won't be able to break this pattern. Because this is one thing I love, is this is my favorite statistic ever. There is only one person in this world that you spend 100% of your life with. And that person is you.
Yep. It's crazy that you say that, and I wasn't being rude looking at my
No,
phone.
yeah.
But there's actually, because I'm like you, I love the audiobooks. I don't read actual paper, but I got some, but I don't know why I bought them. I don't read them. Yeah. But speaking of like moving into the same space with the same guy, what I've always said is that, coming back to the book, Extreme Ownership. So Jocko Willink and Leif Babin, and they talk about whatever is happening in your world, there is an element of ownership that you must take in that space. And with attracting the same guy, it's like, okay, so what part did you hold in the demise of that? Where were you in that space, and what do you need to learn from that? And the book, seriously, I recommend it to everybody to read it. It's phenomenal. They are Navy SEALs. They are really, really Yank US. So you got to get used to the accent, but once you get over that, it's phenomenal. And just the fact that they go into big businesses, multi-million-dollar businesses, and help them, coming from a US Navy SEAL background to elite business, and they can help them progress in business purely because it comes back to ownership. Own you first. Own your shit first. Learn how to put it back to you in a sense of, what did I do in that space? Was I the best version of myself, or is there something there I need to look at? And leaning into that and going, well, I want to change that because I don't want to continue to have the same things happen in life. And comes back to, yet again, the law of attraction. Now, yet again, the woo-woo thing, not everyone believes in it, but we are only energy, and what we put out, we attract back. It's like, well, if you're putting out that they're going to cheat on you, you will, confirmation bias from the ego, go to a point of sabotage to make that happen. And it's like, you're actually putting that out to the universe. It's going to deliver it. So if you then change your perspective and go, well, what do I want in a man? And you start to actually put that out to the universe and really believe in it, the universe will deliver that to you. And it doesn't always mean that you get it right, because it's a process of growth and journey. But everything starts to shift. And I did it personally. And I'm like, wow. And then the man I attracted was completely different. I was like, this shit works. It's not woo-woo, and we are energy, and it does come back to us. And as a coach, I want to be magnetic in that energy, and therefore I'm going to lean into me and healing me and doing what I need to for myself, because that's magnetic. People want to learn how to do that for themselves. And like I said, that Extreme Ownership, phenomenal book. Taught me so much.
I can't say enough about them too. I mean, I'm literally sat here wearing an Echelon Front t-shirt, which is the name of the business.
There you go, yeah.
And there's a tub of protein over there with Jocko's
yes,
name
Jocko.
on it.
I just couldn't reason I looked just like, I'm like, Jocko was just coming up and I couldn't remember Leaf. I'm like, who's the other dude? He's really important. That's why I had to look it up, because I want to give them both massive props, because they're phenomenal what they did. And just listening to the stories and the extreme nature of theirs, hence Extreme Ownership, is that it came back to the life or death of people within their platoons. I'm like, now that's extreme to the nth degree. And what they do is phenomenal. Like I said, it's just transferring their same skill sets into life, and it's so true.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably a dream of mine, would be to be sat face to face in one of these things with Jocko or Leif or someone like that. But, you know, yeah. I mean, you know, you talk about things that, you know, have a massive impact on life. Like this, their book, the same for me. Yeah. It just made sense. And the reason it made sense is because everything is simple.
It is, yep.
It's like we add, as people, we add so much context to everything we do because we want to try and create reasoning behind it, where at the end of the day, it's everything can be black and white if you want it to be.
Yep.
And it is that, like, simplicity is so underrated.
Overlooked.
Yeah.
Huge.
Because we want to think there's more to things. We want to think things are bigger than they are, because in our heads they seem bigger than they are.
Yeah.
Like, it's, if someone said to you, it's like, the reason somebody's cheating on you is because of you. It's not that simple. No. Well, what about this person? They did this, they did that, and all this, and all did this, and all did this. And I was like, that's them. What about you? Well, you know, all this has happened to me. That's your past. What about you?
That's it.
It's simple, like, in the fact is, like, it's simple in the conclusion. It's not so simple in the actual, you know, the healing process itself. It's the healing process is hard. It's tough. And it's a long journey. It's not a quick fix. There's no 7 steps to magic success.
If only, maybe we'd be billionaires.
I know, yeah. It isn't a thing. Like, it's consistent work and having the tools to be aware that when something new comes in, how to deal with it.
But like you said, the tools are simple. So the things that we use the most, we're writing, right?
Pen and ink.
Writing. Actually sitting with yourself and writing what you felt. I mean, something we sort of learnt from the mentorship was a dopamine detox. Now, I'm not necessarily completely sold on the whole, like the way it's done, but what it was pretty much implying is that you take yourself away from things that give you pleasure, so that actually have a dopamine response within the brain. Say food, for example. And what you do is that you take away all the things that give you pleasure and you sit with yourself. And what it makes you do is become aware of how you feel within that space, within the realm, within the universe, and how much you look to external sources to make you feel happy, human, complete, content, whatever the word is. And it's taking yourself away from that. And you sit with a pad and pen and you basically journal everything that happens in that space. And now you can take them up to me. Usually I say to people, do a 12-hour kind of thing. Because it's really hard to move away from things that give you pleasure. I mean, like I said, your phone. How many people are addicted to that thing because they get a like and it makes them feel special and happy? And I'm like, well, that's not true. It's an illusion. So sit with yourself and actually see how content you are to be in your own skin, in your own space, in your own space, with just you.
Well, it's in small. It's what detoxing is all about. You know, it's if you detox from anything, you see the creation of what that does to you. You know, and it's like, I love that you brought it up because I've been off. I deleted Facebook and Instagram off my phone 3 weeks ago, I think now, and instantaneously the difference it's made. And I'm not saying that everybody has to do this. You know, it's your own preference, but man, the differences it's made to the way I feel because of the perception that I thought I needed Instagram and Facebook on my phone because, but what if someone comments on my photo that I put up this morning of this thing that's probably not important to anybody else but me? And then, yeah, it's like look, this whole COVID thing has made me listen so much more, and I listened to Jay Shetty's book.
He's brilliant too.
I can't remember the name of it. It's like Think Like a Monk, I think it's called.
Not sure.
But he mentioned the process of something that monks do is they go out on a walk, the same walk every single day, and it lasts about 2 hours. And on this walk, they have to find something that they have never seen before. And then when they come back, they have to share it with the group. So you can't make this shit up.
Yeah.
It's got to be something that you've never seen before. And what it teaches you is to be more present and be, in the moment. So if you're going for a walk, you're paying attention to the walk, you're enjoying the walk. And I just so happened to be listening to this part of the book on a walk as the sun was rising over the city in Perth while scrolling through Instagram. And I just looked up, I saw the sunrise over the top of the buildings, and I just listening, and I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? But then, all of this, but you need Facebook. You run a business. You need Instagram. You run a business. And I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds about right. I'm like, oh, well, I can't delete it. And then I thought, hold on a minute, dude. You post up, and I got this from Jocko, complete steal. I post up a picture of my watch every single morning just to show discipline. And this was my thing I did every single morning. First thing in the morning, boom, picture of my watch, little motivational quote that goes with it in a hope to inspire and motivate people. And I felt like I needed to do this because of my business. Not wanted to do, needed. So then I thought, hey dude, how many people have you successfully brought on as a client from Instagram? And I was like, oh, 0.
Same with mine. 0.
And I'm like, how many people do you think actually really care about this picture of your watch? I'm like, oh, must be maybe 1 person, 2 people.
Me?
I don't know. And then it's like, you do know Instagram is not just on your phone. What are you doing on Instagram? And I'm like, uh-oh, the wife's not going to be happy at this one. I'm looking at another yoga chick doing some strange pose that's rather suggestive. And it's like, this isn't a good use of my time at all. And it's like, man, you don't realize how much these... Obviously, dopamine is like the pleasure thing, right? That's what people say, but you get dopamine from so many things that don't cause you actual pleasure, but give a pleasure response.
Yep.
Facebook, Instagram, alcohol, drugs, TV, porn. The list can go on and on and on and on. As a guy, it's like, oh yeah, it may be cool. It's like, oh yeah, I watched this porno last night, and it's like, this is so good. And then it's like, well, it's actually quite bad. In terms of it gives you a false sense of what a beautiful connection between 2 people really is.
That's it.
Instead of being like, you spending time giving your energy to someone in a hope to pleasure them and make them feel good, and you feel good at the same time, it ends up becoming about arseholes and blowjobs and positions and what can I do and all this sort of stuff. And if you don't get it, then, oh, well, this person's shit in bed, so I'm going to move on to the next one now. And you missed it. The chain reaction starts of you're seeking physically what you see. The same thing happens on Facebook. You get pissed off because your mate who you've been listening to whinge on about all these problems and things that's going on and stress, and he's needed a holiday, posts up this awesome picture of the sunset over the hotel or pool or beach that they're on. And you go, fuck, my life isn't like that. My life's bullshit. You forget about all the stuff that they've been talking about and pay attention to that one thing. And then, okay, now maybe if I post up something that's sensational, I'll get that too. And again, I've waffled on again, but it's this is how this dopamine, it works. It's how you can get so trapped into losing your way with not being attentive to the things that you're going through.
Well, it's an addictive state, isn't it? I mean, it's like with anything, for drugs, for example, that you said, is that if you continue to have the drug to get the hit, you need more and you need more and you need more, to a point where you can't get enough. But could you ever get enough? Because you weren't actually content within yourself. And it's the same with like the false dopamine response, because if you're looking for something to make you feel good about you externally, are you ever going to feel good? No, you're not. It's like you say, a person, they want to lose 20 kilo. Okay, cool. So if you don't do any of the mental work moving through that space and heal the trauma and the experiences that might have got them to that space, when they look in the mirror 20 kilo lighter, do they like what they see? And most of the time it's not. They still hate that person looking back at them, even though they look phenomenal. Because like, well, what journey did you learn? Did you actually learn what it took to be that person? Did you actually step into that space of leaning into the discomfort of healing from whatever got you to that point? And have you learned how to be that person moving forward? Because a lot of the time they don't know how to be that person. It's like, did you learn how you need to eat and what you need to do in regards to recovery, and how you might need to sleep, and what might you need to do in regards to, do you need to fast or eat a particular manner? Like, did you learn those things? No, you didn't, because you took the low road and you got there fast. It's like, but you didn't learn how to stay there. And so a lot of people, like you said, they're repeat offenders in whatever it is, because they haven't actually learned how to be that person yet.
Well, it goes back to the you thing. It's like, that person that you see in the mirror is external.
That's it.
The clothes that you may be able to fit into now because you've lost weight, it's external. The handbag that you bought yourself is external. The car you bought yourself is external. The beers that you drink, everything is external. Like, if you can see it, it's external. It's not going to be the solution.
That's it.
The solution, like, it's great to see, like, I learned this in a fitness world, being a PT, is that when somebody says they want to lose weight, okay, yes, they want to lose weight, but they don't really want to lose weight.
Nope.
They want something more deeper. They want something inside. Most of the time, it's confidence. Most of the time, it's to not feel that they have to punish themselves all the time because of this preconceived idea that being 10 kilos overweight is a bad thing. For health reasons, being overweight, it's not necessarily a great thing, but it's not who you are. You are not overweight. You may have more body fat than you would like, or health-wise you may not be in the greatest space, but it's not who you are. You can change that.
Yep.
But the thing is, like you said, if you change it and don't learn the lessons along the way, you're still going to be mentally that person that thinks they need to lose weight. And this happened to one of the guys that I had a podcast with, the last episode actually, and I don't want to mention his name on this one, but he went through the same thing. We took him from 130 kilo, I think it was, to roughly about 99, and then got him down to like 91, and ended up suffering from bulimia because he'd not learned the lesson along the way. He was so focused on the weight loss. And look, unfortunately at the time, I was not aware of what he was going through. And I hold my hand up and said, like, I was encouraging him to do the weight loss because he was on such a good path that I missed that he was not learning the lessons along the way. And he got to a path where it became that weight loss was what he needed. So it didn't matter what he was going through. Didn't matter if he weighed 70 kilos. Weight loss was what he was going through. It was his thing. So until he weighed 0 kilos, which is death, there would be no solution. But I didn't want him to get that way. I'm sure he didn't want to get that way. And I'm fortunate enough now that I get to speak to him on a regular basis, and we talk a lot about the mental side of things, and we get him set on a path that way. But because he missed that education along the way about following up with who it is that he wanted to be. You know, getting in touch with the real person inside of him. You know, he identified with the external, and the external was never enough. And that's so common, not to that degree, but it's so common in the fitness world. It's so common in outside the fitness world, in many other industries. Like you see it with fashion, another big thing. And it's this thing to need more of what you currently have that seem to solve a problem. So you lose that kilo, you feel good. I want to lose another kilo. You get that handbag, you feel good. Looks good on you. Maybe need another handbag.
And the cycle begins.
So yeah. And but this is where it's all up in here. It's in the head again. If you write this down and you said like, okay, now I've got 50,000 handbags, am I solved? No,
Nope.
I need another handbag. And then you look at it on paper and it's just like, that is fucking absurd. If my friend had 50,000 handbags, I'd say they were fucking insane. Yet for yourself, because you don't see it, it's like a challenge, right? It's like you've got a choice between, well, the handbag makes me feel good and that nurtures my ego and that pushes, like, you know, it's like a stroke. It's like, good boy.
Doing what you should, well done.
Yeah. It's like, you get another handbag. It makes me feel good.
All the handbags.
Yeah. But then the question is, it's like, do I need another handbag? And it's like, well, I've already got 50,000. It's not the handbag. It's that dopamine hit. It's that hit of pleasure.
Feels good.
that you're chasing. It's not any physical form. It's that is internal. And yeah, and unfortunately, that's where addiction comes into play.
Huge. I guess, like you said, it's helping people become the best version of themselves, so whatever that is. And it's different for everyone, but with, like you said, it's like it all comes back down to very similar underlying reasons, and it's usually that they are not enough as they are, and like you said, there's something they have to make themselves feel like they are enough, and I'm like, it's not true. And from all the cases I've come across, it doesn't matter what the environment or the trauma or the past they've come from, it always comes back to, I am not enough. And I'm like, but you are enough. And like you said, all the things we teach and a lot of the principles we use in coaching are simple because it's just helping that person recognize that you don't need anything else. You just need to love you. And when you do that, watch your life change. And watch that change have ripple effects onto everybody around you, and the positive changes that helps with other people just by focusing on yourself. And I guess in the service industry, because we're in service, and I learned this in retail, is that to be truly selfless, you have to be selfish.
I love that.
Because if you, like, again, the cup half full, it's like, well, if you're half full, how can you actually love anybody else? So if you don't love yourself, how do you love anybody else? If you don't care for yourself, how do you truly care for anybody else? And I say this with parents a lot, is because they put their kids first. I'm like, all right, what are you teaching your child? Like, what do you mean? Like, I'm teaching them that, like, they're really important. I said, oh, are you? Because what they see is that burnt out shell of a mum or a dad who's constantly stressed out, yelling, running, and not spending the time to enjoy that space with her children. So what you're teaching your children ultimately is that they don't matter because you don't. And it's a really tough lesson for people to even hear, and you really, really, like, the approach is really soft and caring because it's not their fault. They do it because it's what you believe is right. But what you're ultimately teaching your children is that you don't matter, therefore they don't matter. And it's horrible when it happens. So it's putting yourself first and loving yourself, and then from that space, you don't actually have to do anything. The energy that comes from being that person is enough. And that, like I said, that affects people close or anyone that they come in contact with. And it comes back to energy. It's like, what does your energy say about you? And do you embrace you? And can you be selfish? Or is it impossible?
Well, nice. You're right. Like, we have a giving culture. We have a giving mentality. Like it's a lot of people, I include myself in this, suffer with receiving.
Oh, huge.
And it's... I listened to... I don't know if you've heard of Simon Sinek.
Huge. He's excellent.
Yeah. He said something that really stuck with me is, since the war, we've constantly been trying to one-up our parents. So it's like wartime, there was nothing. You struggled to even put a plate of food on the table. So that generation of kids that were brought up, they become parents and they go, okay, well, you know, I want to be better than my parents. I want to make sure there's food on the table all the time. So be it. So they give their kids food. And then their kids then become adults and parents. And they go, well, you know, my mum and dad really, really struggled and to put food on the table. They worked really, really hard all the time. Like, I want to give my kids what I didn't have. So they put food on the table and they make sure that, you know, the kids have got more than just food. And then the next lot of kids become, and they go, well, you know, my mum and dad worked really hard, put food on the table and gave me stuff like, you know, but I feel I can give more than that. So then they give everything, like presents for no frickin' reason and gifts of love because it's like, oh, I've still got to work hard because that's the lessons that mum and dad taught me, is that you have to work. And then you give by putting more physical, like more toys, more this, more that. Then you end up with a generation of kids that are getting medals for participating and getting toys because they've done the homework and getting mad gifts for no apparent reason. And then you end up with a generation of kids that are fucking lost because
they haven't learned the lessons.
They don't know how do I one up that? And then so they've got this identity crisis of, what do I do with my life? I have got and I've been given absolutely everything that I need. Why do I need to work?
Yeah.
I've probably gone a little bit off topic with this, but it's important in that you, again, it's all about focusing on the external. It's like, I had a conversation the other day, and we try and give, and all that giving just takes time away from what your kids really want. You.
Time.
Just, they don't care what job mom's got. They don't care what dad does for a living or how he earns his money, or they don't really care about presents and fancy toys and things. They just like to spend time with you.
Well, how often when you buy a toddler a toy, the box is more fun?
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. But this is the thing, is like going back to your selfish statement, is like you give everything, 100% of yourself to everybody else. You feel exhausted. You feel drained. You feel stressed out because not 1% of your time is spent looking after you. But how often and this may not happen very often for a lot of people. It may happen frequently for people, but something good happens for you. And you had a great day at work, everything seems to go well. You get home, the same problems exist, the same challenges are still there. But you're just like, I've had a great day, I feel so good. And they're like, wow, you know, mum's just getting through stuff today really well. Dad's in a great mood. But it's effortless. That energy that you're able to give is effortless because you are feeling good. So imagine if you spent 80% of your time looking after you, being selfish. And that's, people get selfish confused with, I'm not saying hoard all your money and hoard everything. It's not hoarder's thing. It's
look
just
after you.
Look after you. Look after your well-being. That 20% that you've got left that you give to other people will be far greater in value than the 100% that you give when you're in a negative space. And it's like, I love that statement that you need to be selfish. It's so important. And it's
simple too, yet again. But how many people do it? Because, yet again, the actual thought process to selfish is negative. I'm like, that's not true. It's like I said, it's just give to self, because then you can actually give so much more. So ultimately, it's selfless.
Yeah, exactly. But it's, it's important to have these conversations and to have people like you out there that, want to help and want to offer this advice and this gift to people to realize that they can too, break from these bad habits that they have, break from this person that they think they might be, and as a strength empowerment coach, like what does that involve in terms of what you help people with? Yeah,
cool, great question. And with about the whole coming on and talking and sharing, I mean, without you or people like yourself, that doesn't happen either. So this is always this is always like we help each other. But yeah, strength empowerment, basically it was something that I coined purely because, yes, I'm studying life coaching, and I've been doing coaching for ages in regards to strength and conditioning coaching, and it's all comes, and I've been coached as an athlete. So it all makes a massive part, and then I've been mentored too in what I see coaching is. And so I went, well, I want to create something that's mine, and purely just because of the fact that it's therefore something I can be loyal to and teach others. And it's not come back to a label, but strength empowerment came back to the fact of that it's helping people feel empowered by working on and developing and embracing the strength that comes from personal growth in body, mind, and spirit. And that's my PG version, as we spoke before. I'm going to give my R-rated version. It was actually quite funny because I spoke about it on a podcast today, but my sister's like, R-rated, it's Rhianna's version. I'm like, oh, that's excellent, I'm going to steal that. So the R-rated version is that I help people do whatever the fuck it is they need to do to live their life. That is it. And in whatever aspect that involves. Now, yes, I'm within the health and fitness realm, but I can help people because I had allied professionals outside of me that I referred to, because it's not about just me. It's like, oh, I know when I'm out of my depth, as we spoke before, and I want to refer that person out. And so it's having a arsenal of people you go, I trust this person so much and I know they can help you. Now, please go to them because I can't help you any further, or I don't have the skill to help you. And it's recognizing that we work together to help each other. And with my business, I guess, the strength empowerment is that I am helping you do whatever you need to do and whatever that looks like for you. And if it is outside of me, I'll tell you. I'll be the first person to go, this is not within my scope. But I know you want help, so I'm going to help you find that person that you need, that's actually going to change your life. And it might not be me. That's cool. And I always say to people within my business too, is that I might not be for you. And you might not be ready for what I'm going to actually tell you either, because, and I do believe is that as a coach, we're not always liked. We say shit that people don't want to hear, but it's something we kind of have to do for them, because they need to sometimes have that perspective actually checked for them, and we're not always liked. And so therefore on that space, it's, you have to, so when I first help people, it's like, come and talk to me and let's see if we actually have a relationship here that is conducive of growth, because sometimes we don't, right? And it's being okay with that and having the group of professionals that we work with, because I'm not always going to be your person. That's not personal. I'm not taking that on board. But if I am that person, I will do everything in my power above and beyond. Well, if we have something come up, I'm going to go over, around, under, through, whatever that is, and to help you develop the skill needed to step into that space and heal. I mean, at the end of the day, I can't do it for you.
Yeah, that's true.
But I'm going to do all I can for you to understand and develop, I guess, the processes needed to step into that space. That is it.
I love the fact that you're more than happy to refer on, and I think I must have mentioned this on every single episode that I've done. I love to bring up my bachelor party experience. It wasn't a strippers and cocaine fueled thing like a lot are. We actually went and spent some time in the forest, tripping off our tits on the San Pedro cactus, which was pretty cool. And the bit that the main thing that stuck with me from that was nothing really about, I mean, apart from the amazing experience that I had, was one thing that the guy that was initiating the whole ceremony kind of thing, he said that the most beautiful part about today was the fact that you guys are here together for one goal, and that is community. And he said, what is community? It's nothing other than common unity. And me being off my face, I was like, whoa! And I was like, it's so true. Like, community is an idea that a group of people have for a common goal. And for you to be able to refer people on is that you have your community of people that you want to help other people be introduced to, because this community of people all have the common goal of wanting to help another. And that's it.
It's amazing. I just want to share with those people who don't actually have the pleasure of sitting in the room with Joe is that as he said that, the energy that came from him gave me goosebumps because obviously it was life-changing to a degree that every cell in his body emanates that feeling, and it was unreal. I was like, whoa! Sort of almost made me catch my breath. And it's it's that the community of being with people and being able to experience that energy too. And I just want to let the people listening know that was phenomenal.
Well, thank you. I didn't even realize. But no, I don't want to take any more of your time. You've shared so much today. I know you're a very busy lady, and if anybody does want to, hears this and wants to reach out to learn a little bit more about what you do, where's the best place to get in contact with you?
It's funny, but I'm going to say Facebook at the moment. Now, people who are listening, I'm not governed by Facebook at all. When I post because I want to post, not because I need to. But yeah, my Strength Empowerment page, I've got a Strength Empowerment community page where we're stronger together, which we are. And if you just basically look that up on Facebook, and it's a group that you've got to be added to, but add on that, and then from there you can just contact me from there. It's really simple. Yeah,
awesome. Well, it's been fantastic to have you on today and learn about your short. I mean, I love hearing people's stories, and I think it's incredible that people have the courage to want to share it, and that, again, with the common goal being nothing else but to be able to give people the feeling that they're not alone.
That's
and
it.
that they have ways and different options to be able to choose from in terms of becoming more connected with themselves. And it's been beautiful. You really don't realize things about people until you really sit down and talk. Like I said at the start of this, I've known Rhyanna for 5-6 years, and I did not realize how much we have in common in terms of the things that we like, the things that the principles that we have, the way that we've decided to run our businesses. It's phenomenal.
Attracts like.
Yeah, but again, you don't get this unless you listen to people, unless you really sit down.
That's it.
And it's been an absolute pleasure having you here.
It's my pleasure.
I'm so happy that we sat down and did this. And again, I love to have repeat guests on. So if you want to come on anytime in the future, just let us know.
Yeah, of course. As long as your listeners don't mind with us two coaches rambling on forever.
Yes, this could quite easily go for about 6 hours. I feel that.
But no, thank you so much. It's been my pleasure, and I will definitely be here to share moving forward. So. But awesome. What you're doing is phenomenal, and keep doing it.
Well, thank you. And keep doing what you're doing too.
Thanks, bud.
Thanks, Rhyanna.
See ya.
Bye.
Thanks again, guys, for listening to this episode of the Ownerships Projects podcast, SOS, sharing our stories. We'd like to once again thank our guests for today for having the courage to come up and share their story, and also our sponsor for this year, Getsome.com.au, providing you with some fantastic supplements all the way from the USA. Please stay tuned for this next important message. For anyone listening that's in need of any support for any reasons for their mental health, please contact Beyond Blue on 1300 224636. Or for the ages of 12 and 25 years old, Headspaces at 1-800-650-890. Or for the ages of 5 to 25, Kids Helpline on 1-800-55-1800. Or if you're in need of any immediate support, please contact Lifeline on 131114, and they're available 24/7 for those in Australia. If you are looking for any more numbers, if you can visit healthdirect.gov.au/mental health lines. There's a lot of numbers there for specific topics. And also on our website is onu, that's o-nu.com.au/mental-health-support-lines. We have a list of phone numbers and contact details for many of the main areas around the world. If you are in need of any support, or you do know someone that this would benefit, please share this to anyone you think may need it. Thank you.